You might be wondering why I'm standing next to a gas pump. You know, I'm going to do something today that I haven't done in a long time, and that is drive cross-country from Iowa to Colorado in a gas car. Why am I doing that? Well, we got a car, long story, for my son out here in Iowa, and I need to get it out to him. And the only way to do that is to drive it, and that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to go 800 plus miles in one day in an ICE car, and we'll see how it goes. Now, the reason why I'm talking to you is because those of us in an EV, had EVs for a long time, perhaps I'm living in a bubble. Perhaps I've just gotten used to the EV road trip lifestyle. You know, all the people saying, well, ICE cars are so much better, they go so much farther, you can get to your destination quicker, you can fill up a lot faster, it's just more convenient. Well, that might be true, that might be not. So I'm gonna take you on this journey, give you a perspective from a longtime EV owner, just what it's like to go cross-country again in a gas car, and tell me, are EVs better in my opinion, or is there something to this ICE thing still? So come along for the ride. So I'm on the road in this gas car. It's a 2022 Hyundai Kona all-wheel drive. And I have to admit that first impressions are actually really good, because here's one thing. This thing has autopilot. A 2022 Honda Kona effectively has autopilot. Now, they don't call it autopilot. They call it lane centering or whatever they call it. But you can turn it on and it will hold the lane. I don't know how it's doing it. I'm not sure that there's cameras or what's going on. I don't think there are cameras, but somehow it is able to hold the lane. And not just hold the lane, but as the highway swerves back and forth naturally, this car will take those turns. Now, it's probably not going to take the same amount of turns as autopilot is for the tight turns, twisty turns. I'm certainly going to try it if I run into any of those. But for cross-country driving, this thing does a decent job. And oh yeah, it also has a cruise control, which I can set and have it lock in at a certain speed, and it'll go that speed. And for those of us with FSD, that's not something that you can do right now, and it's a bit of a frustration for me. But I do have a hardware 4 car coming. Hopefully that will improve. But overall, so far so good. And you know, it'll even has a nag. The thing even has a steering wheel nag, which surprised me. If you don't have your hands on the steering wheel for a long enough period of time, and it's about the same as a Tesla, 30 seconds to 60 seconds or so, it comes up with a little ding, and it's even got the red steering wheel that says, hey, grab the steering wheel. You need to be holding on to the steering wheel for it to work. So the car has a screen in the center. It's Apple CarPlay. It's wireless CarPlay. I've used CarPlay in rental cars before. It's fine. It's not the Tesla app, but we're going to see how it goes. Now, when I filled up this car before I left, you saw in the intro, wanted to top it off before I left. A lot of things we talk about with EVs is range. And the range on this said about 330 miles, if I'm remembering right. And I am currently at 322. Now, this range is likely going to change and adapt based on what it's actually seeing for gas mileage. So I'm going to keep track of the range. I'm going to keep track of the cost, because cost is clearly a factor when owning an EV. And just kind of give you kind of an idea of whether or not we are living in that bubble, an EV bubble that says EVs are the best thing on the planet and gas cars are not. And I'll let you know as we go how I'm feeling. Well, it's at my first stop, and it's not for what you think, because I don't need gas. My body needs to go to the restroom, and we are ironically stopping in Des Moines at the supercharger that we normally stop at. And but I'm gonna just stop and use the restroom, which is actually a decent observation that I have about driving a gas car. Yes, it says I have 247 miles of range to go, and I've gone 120 miles. So clearly this car can go a long, long way, but my body cannot. So I can see EVs. If you're the demographic where you don't have young kids and you're not my age, you can probably last a lot longer. It doesn't help that I have a large soda to drink, but if you're like me, your body is going to tell you that it is time to stop and you need to go. So in an EV, as you know, you need to stop and charge, and it isn't that big of a hardship. So I'm going to time how long it takes me to go in and get something to eat and do the normal thing, and just see what that takes compared to a 15-minute charge. So with that, I'll check in a sec. Right, just got back in the car. It was about 6 minutes in and out. Yeah, that isn't very long, but if I was filling up, it would have probably taken a few more. So 10 minutes with a normal stop. And if you're road tripping in an EV and you're going from charger to charger, you're in the 15-minute mark. So we're really not that far off. But for now, let's hit the road. Well, made it to our first needed gas stop. Says we have about 75 miles and I can still go, but this seems to be like a pretty decent spot. I was able to travel from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, all the way to basically Lincoln, Nebraska on one tank of gas in this thing, and that's nice. I did stop in Des Moines because I had to use the restroom, but I didn't fill up, and then we would have had to stop in Shelby, Iowa, and then again in Lincoln to charge. So I'm making good time. That's one clear benefit of being on a nice car. When you're traveling long distances, that the range, it's about range, and the range can go farther in a gas car. There's no doubt about that. And if they would ever add more range to a Tesla, I think it would be of a greater appeal. I know that Tesla says that most people don't need the range, and that's probably true, but most people don't need to be able to travel 300 plus miles in a gas car either, but it can, and it's nice when you need it. So with that, I'm going to get plugged in with a gasoline pump and see what this fill up costs me. Okay, check in from the road. I just passed, I guess, the halfway-ish mark. I'm at just past 400 miles. This total trip should be right around 800. Up to this point, I stopped twice. I stopped in Des Moines to use the restroom, and then I stopped just east of Lincoln, Nebraska to fill up the car for the first time. And I'm just now somewhere in the middle of Nebraska, and it still says I have 257 miles of range on this 2022 Hyundai Kona. Standing here, what does it feel like? I expected, honestly, to be a lot more tired than I am. I also expected that I would be needing to stop more often than I stop. I will say that the driving has been very helpful for fatigue because I'm able to utilize their, I don't know what the right word is, but it's their version of autopilot. It's active lane holding. There is a camera in the front. And while not perfect, far from perfect, and I have to correct quite a bit, it does cut down on the little micro adjustments that you make while you're driving. So overall, I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm actually kind of surprised that I'm not stopping more often than I am. I am drinking liquids. Got my Diet Coke here. Got a cooler next to me. I am trying to limit what I drink, but I really thought I would have to be stopping more often. I've been telling people in an EV, well, you got to stop every 2 to 2.5 hours to charge, but my bladder needs to stop and do its thing that amount of time anyway, so what's the big deal? But the reality that I'm finding is that once you kind of get into this long distance groove, at least for me, I don't need to stop as often. And again, if EVs had more range, people would use it. So that's my 2 bits from the road. Well, we're in Ogallala. You've heard that from me before. This is one of our other normal charging stops because this is kind of the last refuge in Nebraska, if you want to call it that, before you have to make the long road to Brush to charge there. But we're not charging, we're filling up with gas. And so far we're 572 miles into this journey. It says we still have 82 miles left, but there isn't a lot between here and Fort Morgan, so I figure I might as well just stop, use the restroom, and get her done. So let's figure out what this is going to cost us, but fill up should be quick. All right, all fueled up. Took about 5 minutes. That's really all it took. Everyone says it takes 5 minutes. It takes about 5 minutes. Fuel up, use the restroom. Didn't buy anything because I have snacks here. And that last fill up was about 28 bucks. So keep tabs on that. This should get us to the Denver area. I'm going to fill up when we get to Denver just so we get a total cost of the trip. We can do some comparisons to EVs. But with that, no sense sitting around. Let's hit the road. All right, we made it. This is our last gas up. I want to give the car final top off. It says we still have 195 miles left to go, but we're going to go ahead and fill it up, and we'll have the rack and stack, and we'll come back later for my final thoughts on what it took, what it was like for a person that's owned a Tesla for the last 5 years to go cross country in a gas car. So for now, let's get plugged in. Well, I'm back home. I'm in my garage, and as you can see, I am in my Tesla Model Y. What is the wrap-up? What is the summary of this video? Well, let's summarize the stats first. Total time of that trip was 11 and a half hours for me, and that's about an hour and a half shorter than it would have taken me in this Model Y, because we only stopped 4 times if you count the final destination. And our normal trips in an EV, we are stopping 7 to 8 times. So it does add up, even if you are stopping for 15 minutes or so at a time. Total cost. Everyone's saying gas is so expensive. Well, total cost in this car was $78.28. And that wasn't too bad in my book. And given that supercharger prices are pretty high, I don't have anything to compare it to because I have a lot of free supercharger miles. Thank you, everyone. But that doesn't seem unreasonable to me. So the next question is, are we living in that bubble? Are EV owners living in a bubble? And the answer is kind of yes and no. Well, it kind of ultimately depends on your driving style. If you have the ability to go long distance, going long distance is nice. And being able to drive and only have to stop 2 or 3 times on that kind of journey is nice. The other thing I need to recognize is that Tesla doesn't have autopilot cornered in the world. Sure, FSD is great, but standard autopilot, and I would argue on Tesla, isn't all that great anymore. A lot of cars out there, this 2022 Hyundai Kona had a basic version of autopilot, and that took away a ton of the road tripping fatigue. And so there are a lot of cars out there that have this kind of assistive technology. So what would solve this debate with an EV? Stop talking about it, and it comes down to range. If EVs had more range, we wouldn't be talking about it, and there'd be a massive amount of adoption with EVs. Sure, you can go by what Tesla tells you, that 95% of the time you're never going to use the battery that you have, and that is absolutely true. But it does give you freedom. Freedom to make choices, freedom to get in a car and go, freedom to go those long distances if you want to. And ultimately, until the range gets up to be on par with gas cars, this debate is going to continue. That's it. You guys be the judge. Are EV owners living in a bubble? Let me know in the comments below. So with that, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.